There's a kind of waste that doesn't feel like waste while it's happening. It looks like buying another bottle of cleaning spray because the first one was tucked away at the back of the cupboard. It looks like replacing a jumper because a seam has started to come loose. It looks like half a pot of yogurt pushed behind something newer, until one day it's easier to throw it away than to think about whether it's still usable. These moments don't usually feel careless. Most people aren't walking around trying to waste money or fill the bin. They're tired. They're busy. They're trying to get dinner sorted, clean the kitchen, leave the house on time, and keep the day moving without another small problem to solve. So the waste slips in quietly. A thing gets forgotten. Something gets bought twice. A small repair is ignored for too long. Food is left until it no longer feels safe or pleasant to use. And slowly, the home starts to leak value. Money leaves through things we didn't finish. Space disappears into duplicates. Attention gets caught on objects that are half used, half broken, or half forgotten. Then the budget starts to feel tighter, not always because one big thing went wrong, but because lots of small things stopped being useful before they really needed to. There's a Japanese word that holds this feeling very neatly: Mottainai. It's often used to describe the regret or unease we feel when something with value is wasted. But it doesn't have to be treated like a moral lecture. In everyday life, it can be much more practical than that. Mottainai asks a quiet question. Is there still value here? Not just financial value, use value, time value, care value. The value of something you already chose, already paid for, already brought into your home, and maybe haven't quite finished with yet. No waste living, when it's done sensibly, isn't about being strict or miserable. It's not about counting every grain of rice, refusing comfort, or feeling guilty every time something goes in the bin. It's about building small habits that help your home protect what you already have. And when your home protects what you already have, your budget is often protected too. The first habit is simple: use things up before buying more. It sounds so obvious that it's almost easy to dismiss. Of course we should finish what we have. Most of us already know that. But waste doesn't usually happen because we don't know the rule. It happens because the rule disappears at the exact moment we need it. You run out of your favorite shampoo, so you buy another bottle. Then a few days later, you find 2 half-used bottles in the bathroom cupboard. You pick up pasta sauce on the way home because you can't remember what's in the kitchen. You buy another bag of salad because you're trying to eat well, while the first bag is already going soft in the fridge drawer. That isn't always a spending problem. Very often, it's a visibility problem. So the solution has to live in the environment, not just in your memory. Create one small, use-first place. In the fridge, it might be a front shelf or a clear container where anything that needs attention goes first. Half an onion, opened yogurt, leftover rice, cooked vegetables, the last few slices of cheese. In the bathroom, it might be a tray for products that are already open. In the cleaning cupboard, it could be one basket for bottles that are half-used and need finishing before anything new is bought. It doesn't need to be beautifully organized. It just needs to be obvious. This small system reduces the need to remember everything. Your home starts giving you a cue. It shows you what needs using next. So before you buy something new, pause for a few seconds and check the use first area. Not the whole cupboard, not every drawer, just the place where unfinished things are meant to live. The habit isn't, "I must be more disciplined." It's much more practical than that. Make unfinished things easier to see. The second habit is to repair before replacing. A lot of modern life gently trains us to treat small damage as a reason to buy again. A loose button, a chipped mug, a wobbly chair, a charging cable that only works at a strange angle, a saucepan handle that needs tightening, a pair of shoes that looks tired but isn't really finished. Replacing feels clean. Repairing feels like another job. And when you're already tired, another job can feel bigger than it is. But the value of repair isn't only in saving the object. It's also in slowing down that automatic jump from inconvenience to spending. You don't need to become someone who mends everything by hand or owns a full set of tools. That's not the point. You just need a small place for repairs to land. A repair box is enough. Put in the basics: a needle and thread, a few spare buttons, fabric glue, strong tape, a small screwdriver, maybe shoe polish if you use it, maybe a stain remover. Nothing fancy. Nothing that turns it into a project. Then when something small breaks, it has somewhere to go. That matters more than it sounds. Because when broken things don't have a place, they become a strange kind of emotional clutter. They sit there, slightly annoying you every time you see them. Not urgent enough to deal with, but not fine enough to ignore. Eventually, you replace them, just to remove the little feeling of unfinished business. A repair box changes the sequence. It says, not now perhaps, but not forgotten either. A coat with one loose button might give you another winter. A kitchen drawer handle might need 2 minutes and a screwdriver. A pair of shoes might feel useful again after cleaning and new laces. Of course, repairing before replacing doesn't mean keeping everything forever. Some things really are worn out. Some repairs cost more than the item is worth. Some objects have simply done their job. But the pause is the useful part. It interrupts the habit of solving every small irritation by buying something new. The third habit is to cook from what remains. Food waste is one of the most ordinary ways money disappears, because it often begins with good intentions. We buy vegetables because we want to eat better. We buy fresh herbs for one recipe. We buy bread for the week, and then our plans change. We cook too much rice, too much pasta, too many potatoes, and the leftovers sit in the fridge waiting for a more organized version of us to appear. And on a tired evening, that version of us may not arrive. So the no-waste habit cannot depend on complicated leftover cooking. That sounds lovely in theory, but it often fails in real kitchens on real weekdays when everyone is hungry and nobody wants to think too hard. A more useful approach is to keep a few simple leftover formats in your mind. Soup, fried rice, omelet, pasta bake, toasted sandwich, grain bowl, jacket potato topping. These are not really recipes. They're landing places. A little cooked chicken, half a courgette, and leftover rice can become fried rice. Roasted vegetables can become soup with stock. A few spoonfuls of beans can go on toast. The last of a bag of spinach can be stirred into eggs or pasta. Stale bread can become breadcrumbs, croutons, or just a solid base for something that needs using. This is where no waste becomes easier when it becomes repetitive. You don't need endless creativity. You need a few dependable patterns. One evening a week, before shopping, look at what remains and ask, what meal is already halfway here? That question changes the starting point. Instead of beginning with a craving, a delivery app, or a completely new shopping list, you begin with value that is already in the house. And quite often, there is more there than it first seemed. The fourth habit is to reuse containers and jars, but with limits. This is one of those habits that can easily tip from sensible into chaotic. A cupboard full of empty jars is not a system. It's just a cupboard full of empty jars. So the useful version is more restrained. Keep only what has a clear job. A clean jam jar can hold homemade dressing, leftover sauce, loose tea bags, rubber bands, spare coins, or a small portion of soup for lunch. A takeaway container can store chopped vegetables, batch-cooked rice, or small bits from a drawer that would otherwise roll around loose. A glass jar in the bathroom can hold cotton pads, hair ties, or small everyday items. A sturdy spray bottle might be reused for another cleaning mix, as long as it's properly cleaned and clearly labeled. But the limit is what makes it work. Maybe it's one small shelf. Maybe it's 5 jars. Maybe it's one container drawer, and the rule is simple. It still has to close easily. When it's full, you don't keep more. This is a very practical version of Mottainai. It recognizes that packaging can still be useful, but it also recognizes that your space has value too. Reusing is not the same as keeping everything. It's letting useful things stay useful without letting them take over the home. The fifth habit is to buy less, but choose better when you can. This can sound unrealistic at first, because quality is not always affordable. There are times when the cheapest option is the only sensible option. Sometimes it's the only option available, and there's no shame in that. But where there is room to choose, buying fewer, better things can protect money over time. A kitchen knife that stays sharp may be more useful than a cheap set of 5 that frustrates you every time you cook. One warm jumper you actually wear may be better than 3 that stretch, bobble, and lose their shape. A lunchbox that doesn't leak may save more money than a drawer full of flimsy ones. A washable cleaning cloth can quietly replace roll after roll of disposable wipes. The point is not luxury. It's cost per use. Before buying something, ask, will I use this often enough for it to earn its space? That question is especially helpful with home items, clothes, gadgets, and kitchen tools. A cheap item is not really cheap if it breaks quickly, annoys you, or needs replacing again next month. A discounted item is not a bargain if it becomes another thing to store, sort, clean, move, and eventually donate. Buying less but better also reduces the number of decisions in the home. Fewer things means fewer duplicates, fewer half-working items, fewer choices when you're already tired, less time spent managing possessions that were supposed to make life easier. A calmer home doesn't always come from having better storage. Sometimes it comes from having fewer things that need storing. The sixth habit is to avoid single-use items where it's reasonable. Not everywhere. Not in every situation. There are times when disposable things are practical, hygienic, or necessary. Real life is not always tidy enough for perfect rules. The issue is when single use becomes the default without us noticing. Kitchen roll for every spill. Disposable wipes for every surface. Plastic bags because there's no shopping bag near the door. Bottled drinks because no water bottle is ready. Takeaway cutlery because there's no simple alternative in the work bag. The no-waste approach is not to rely on good intentions in the moment. It is to remove the small points of failure before they happen. Keep a folded shopping bag inside the bag you actually carry. Put washable cloths somewhere easier to reach than kitchen roll. Keep a water bottle near the door or beside your keys so it becomes part of leaving the house. Store a simple lunch kit where you pack food, not in a cupboard you forget to open. This is behavior design in its most ordinary form. You are not asking yourself to be more virtuous at the checkout or more organized when you're already late. You are placing the reusable option where the disposable decision usually happens. Convenience is not the enemy here. Convenience is the point. A reusable habit only lasts when it becomes easy enough to repeat on an ordinary day. The seventh habit is to ask, do I already have something similar? This might be the most useful budget habit of all, because it catches spending before it turns into another object in the home. A lot of purchases begin with a small feeling, a wish for freshness, a desire to get organized, a moment of boredom, a belief that a new item will make a routine easier. And sometimes it will. But quite often the home already contains something close enough. Before buying a new storage basket, you may have an empty box that would do the job. Before buying another black t-shirt, you may already have 3 that serve the same purpose. Before buying a new cleaner, there may be one under the sink that works perfectly well. Before buying a kitchen gadget, you may already own a knife, a pan, or a bowl that solves the same problem. The question is not meant to stop all buying. It just creates a pause between wanting and acquiring. And in that pause, you get a bit of choice back. You might still buy the item. That's fine. But now you're buying it with awareness, not because your attention was caught by a shelf, an advert, or the very pleasant feeling of a fresh start. One practical way to use this habit is to keep a waiting list. When you want something non-urgent, write it down and leave it for a few days. During that time, check whether you already own something similar. Sometimes the desire fades. Sometimes you realize the real need is slightly different. Maybe you didn't need a new desk organizer. Maybe you needed to clear the desk. Maybe you didn't need new clothes. Maybe you needed to mend, wash, or sort the ones you already have. Maybe you didn't need more cleaning products. Maybe you needed one simple cleaning routine that you can actually repeat. This is where no waste becomes more than saving money. It also protects attention. Every object you bring home asks something from you. It needs a place. It needs cleaning, sorting, using, remembering, and eventually deciding about. A purchase is not finished when you pay for it. In many ways, that's when the relationship begins. Mottainai, understood gently, asks us to respect that relationship. Not in a sentimental way, in a practical way. Use what is open. Repair what can be repaired. Cook from what remains. Reuse what has a job. Buy fewer things that last. Make reusable choices easier. And pause before adding something new. None of these habits requires a dramatic change in identity. They work because they are small enough to fit inside the normal movements of a day. Opening the fridge. Getting dressed. Cleaning the kitchen. Packing a bag. Writing a shopping list. That is why they can protect the budget so quietly. They don't ask you to become a different person. They help your existing home work a little better. No waste is not about living with less comfort. It's not about being tight with money or turning every choice into a calculation. It's about noticing the value that is already present before reaching for more. Because often the calmer choice is not to add something. It is to finish, mend, use, reuse, and then decide. And when you live that way, even in small, ordinary ways, you don't just keep more money. You keep more space. You keep more attention. And you keep a little more of your daily life for the things that actually matter.